Hello everybody, Peter here from the Esoteric Order of Gamers, and today it's time for a Kill Team catch-up. We're going to be checking out Blood and Zeal and Brutal and Cunning, the last two Kill Team sets. Well, Kill Team, it's been a while since I've talked about Kill Team, and in fact, I'm very much behind with these two sets. The first one, Brutal and Cunning, was released quite some time ago, and Blood and Zeal has been out for a while now as well. I don't even know if they're still available. You know, sometimes these things can sell out pretty quickly. But I haven't covered these two sets yet. I've been so busy. I went on an overseas trip. I did all these things. And I've been a bit slack, so back with Kill Team. But before I get started, I just want to tell you that I get these for free. My opinions are my own, and I don't charge for these videos. The other thing I wanted to say is, what's going on with Games Workshop? It's been a really quiet year for Games Workshop stuff. I haven't received much product from them to cover, and as far as I can tell, every time I check to see what's going on, there's all kinds of army releases and books and things, but there have been no large releases. I thought maybe there might be a new Warcry set on the horizon, though that doesn't seem to have materialised. The Kill Team releases have been kind of slow. And there's sort of nothing new and exciting going on. It's funny, isn't it? I don't know what's going on with Games Workshop. Maybe they're just laying low for a little bit, catching up on some old stuff, and just leaving big new releases for another time. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with in the rest of the year. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Kill Team. These are, of course, set on the world of Vulcus, which is where the great gun, the massive ballistus, there's your pig Latin right there, which is this giant gun. I mean, when I say giant, enormous, huge, moon-destroying gun. The most impractical weapon you can possibly imagine, which is worshipped on this planet because it's so ancient and everybody is just so obsessed with this huge gun. And that was the setting for the new Kill Team box set, and it's the setting for these sets that are coming out afterwards. Now, in the first one, Brutal and Cunning, we've got the Orc Wrecker Crews versus Rattlings. And in the second one, Blood and Zeal, we've got the Sanctifiers, who are like crazy Spanish Inquisition types, versus the Goremongers, who are, of course, core, blood for the blood god, all that kind of stuff. So a whole lot of stuff to show you, the miniatures as well. I'll talk a little bit about the books. Let's get into it. So starting off with Brutal and Cunning, and the Orc Wrecker Crews are basically, they've been hanging up in an asteroid belt which was created from the destruction of one of the moons of Vulcus by the Great Gun. And an Orc warlord was trying to take over that moon, and they destroyed it with the Great Gun, and a few survivors lived in the asteroid belt, and now they're invading. They're coming down to Vulcus and attacking, and because everybody's busy fighting off the Tau, who of course their Vespid Stingwings were attacking in the box set, the only people who can be spared to tackle the orcs are the Rattlings, and the Rattlings are your halflings, and they're kind of your commando types. They're like the Dirty Dozen, basically. They're on the edge of legality, and they're sort of very independent. They're rebellious. They're kind of crooks, basically. They're a rough ragtag bunch, but they're fantastic snipers. So playing the Rattlings apparently is very interesting. They're quite a unique team, and you really have to go in for the long game here and get to know them because they're very weak on their own. Now, the funny thing about them is that in this set, we have a whole bunch of Rattlings, and they're very cool. However, in the Rattling kill teams, you can also get Ogryns and Bulgryns, which are, you know, your meaty ogre types. But there are none in the box set, which is really annoying. You know, they're part of the team. I just think that they've been a bit cheap here and not put in, at least one Ogryn would have been good to include. So it's kind of assuming that if you want to add Ogryns and Bulgryns to your Rattling team, that you can get them from elsewhere, which seems a bit rough to me. It should have been in the box set. Also, the terrain selection isn't incredibly impressive. It's just a bunch of stockades. I've got them here. You've got a bunker, which is this one, which is fine. As you can see, I haven't got around to painting these yet. I've got a lot of painting to do. And then you've got a bunch of these stockades. And these come with pieces that you can put in here. They're sort of door sections. Here's one here, for example, and the door is removable, so you can get through there and you can have a breach point through there. So, nice little things, but nothing too incredibly impressive. However, the figures are really nice. Of course, as always, Games Workshop quality, really, really good. I've primed these, as you can see, so they're ready for painting. This is very cool, dude. And the Wrecker Crews, which are your orcs, they have a mixture between ranged attacks with rockets, and they also have these tank busters, which are kind of explosive hammers with explosive heads, which sounds like an incredibly dangerous thing to do. Here's one, for example, with an explosive hammer. So they're good at ranged and close combat. This one's got a bunch of rockets on the back of his shoulders, and he's wielding this sort of rocket launcher thing. Very nice. It's only a small team. There's only 6 operatives in this one, so they're sort of considered an elite team. Well, they love getting into melee combat. You don't want them to die too quickly because there's not too many of them. However, you also get a couple of bomb squigs. And this is, of course, a classic wargaming trope, which is some kind of poor thing that goes jumping into the enemy lines with an explosive tied to it and blows up as many people as possible. I've seen that in many tabletop games. It's a real trope. Here's another guy with a rocket launcher. I'm not showing you every single figure here, just a selection, but you get the idea. They make great orcs, don't they, Games Workshop? So some very cool orcs. Then you've got the Rattlings, and these guys have got a lot of character. As I said, very Dirty Dozen type of thing. So kind of that 1970s famous actors all getting together, playing commandos in World War II and infiltrating some base. These guys have got a lot of character and a lot of charm. So, yeah, the Rattlings are cool. Though, as I said, probably take a bit of a challenge to play because they're not going to be running into melee too effectively anytime soon. But you want to get them in good sniping positions. They've also got a skill which allows them to do a dash move after enemy activations. Now, you can't do these consecutively, 2 in a row, but you can get your Rattlings into position pretty quickly with this special rule. Talking about special rules, the Orc Wrecker teams get Wrecker points every time they roll 6 on their attack dice, and then they can spend 3 of these points to change a failure into a success. So the more 6s they roll, the more damage they're going to do. I love this Rattling here who's just having a cuppa, before he goes off and kills somebody. Another guy here with a big sniper gun. Lots of character. So, yeah, a lot of fun, the little Rattlings. It's really nice to see the Rattlings get their own kill team. I haven't seen them for a long, long time in Warhammer 40,000, but they've always sort of been back in the background. So, very cool little set, that. And, of course, it comes with the usual stuff. You've got your decks of cards for the 2 teams, and you've got a nice set of counters. These very specific counters that they make. They're lovely counter sheets, but they have a very specific picture for every single special ability, which sometimes is a little bit overkill. Sometimes, when you're marking something during the game, you're just going to use a generic token. You're not necessarily going to hunt through these to find exactly the right icon that represents that particular special ability, are you? So then we move on to Blood and Zeal. So here, as I said, we've got these Sanctifiers and the Goremongers. Now, the Sanctifiers take me straight back to Necromunda. Necromunda had a sort of Inquisitor team who were big on fire, and they had flamethrowers and all that kind of thing. These guys also use flame, but they're not quite as big on the flame, but they do have... one of them's got a flamethrower. You've got also a cherub with wings, and you've got a confessor who's the leader of the gang. And these guys are zealots. They're like the Spanish Inquisition. And basically, they're going down into the Underhive below the capital city of Volcus. And they're rooting out heresy, which in this game comes in the form of the Goremongers, who are basically crazed Khorne supporters, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, all that kind of thing, who are basically changing themselves with surgery and violent methods to make themselves look more like blood-lettered demons. As you do. Crazy people. It's just so much violence and death and horror. Of course, that's Games Workshop for you. Now, the Sanctifiers have a special ability of oration. So you can get anyone in the team to be an orator, but a confessor is the best because they have the largest range. Within 6 inches, if the confessor is orating and basically doing this sermon. So damage of 3 or more inflicts 1 less damage if you're within range of this sermon. The Goremongers are a little bit more complicated. They have one ability which means that they cannot lose more than 8 wounds per shoot action. But their other thing is that they carry around these gore tanks, which are like backpacks filled with gore, and they can be 3 levels. They can be empty, half, or full. And if you kill another operative, your gore tank goes up by 1. It's charming, isn't it? And if you use a special ability called a Sanguine Vitae, your gore level goes down. And the Sanguine Vitae has 6 different effects. So there's quite a lot to keep track of here and a lot to choose from. And they can be things like regaining wounds, adding action points, giving you 2 fight actions, inflicting extra damage, etc. So basically, they can go out, kill people, get their gore tanks up to maximum, and then unleash holy madness. Well, not holy madness, that's the Sanctifiers. Unleash horrible violence on the other team. So they look sort of demon-like. Let's get them over here. Here's our tray. Now, I'll get into this terrain piece a little bit later. But here are these guys. And as I said, they look a little bit like blood-lettered demons. They've got funny leg prosthetics and stuff. And they're all rushing, screaming into battle with chain swords. You know, it's blood and violence and horror. Classic Warhammer 40,000 stuff. Look at that. Some nice looking figures. The Goremongers, as you can see, they've got their gore tanks on their back there. Look at this guy. He's just leaping off this bit of terrain. That's a pretty impressive figure, isn't it? Very, very dynamic. So they're lovely. And then, of course, you've got the Sanctifiers, who are your classic crazy priests. Not only are they going down into the Underhive to root out corruption and stop heresy, but they're also doing it with such zeal and burning so many innocents and doing all the rest of it that basically the local populace is turning against them. And who wouldn't? But I love this stuff. I love this sort of pseudo-religious kind of stuff in Warhammer 40,000. It really takes it back to the early days of the setting and that kind of weird sci-fi meets gothic religion. I mean, this guy is very, very similar to an old Necromunda figure. So some cool figures there. I really like that particular feel, and I'm looking forward to playing with that team. Now, another special that you get in the set, you get this terrain piece, which is this lovely big statue. You can see I've undercoated this in Wraithbone. I'll give it a Seraphim Sepia wash, and then I'll give it a bit of marble texture so it looks like marble. Got a whole bunch of skulls on the bottom. And if you want to, you can also convert this to make it look as though it's been defiled as well. This goes with a couple of new sets of cards, which are the Blood and Zeal cards, and you can use these in different games, and they're basically attack and defense buffs, but they go with the statue. So depending on whether the statue, whether you're worshipping or defiling it or whatever, you can get particular cards from a layout of cards on the board. You can put them out in sets and you can choose them and things like that. So it's a nice little addition to the Kill Team set, which is cool. You've got your cards for the 2 teams as well. So there you have it, folks, a quick overview of the last 2 Kill Team sets, Brutal and Cunning and Blood and Zeal. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. I presume it'll be 2 more teams still set on this whole campaign idea we have of the Great Gun on Volcus and everything that's going on there. I'm really also interested to see what's going to happen with Warcry, whether that's been abandoned or they intend to do a new set or what. Warcry feels like a game system that didn't really need a new edition. It was kicking along really nicely. But as I said, things have been a little bit quiet. I'd like to see some brand new things from Games Workshop, not just, the drip feed of extra little figures and extra fancy books. They do army books and they do these super fancy versions and everything like that. And the attention seems to be on that kind of stuff rather than big box set releases. Who knows why? I'm only speculating and I have no answers because I have no inside knowledge on what Games Workshop is thinking. We can wait and see, and hopefully when they do release something new, they'll send it to me so I can show it to you. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Take care, everybody, and good gaming. Bye for now.